So Ben Shapiro has this series called Facts, and in his sixth episode he is arguing that multiculturalism is bad. I'm sorry, what he argues is not that multiculturalism is bad. He argues that multiculturalism will end the Western civilization. So apparently it's worse than both world wars, the Black Plague, or just anything that the West has survived so far.
Multiculturalism, we're told, is a wonderful thing. A country of many cultures is reportedly a tapestry of wonder, a mosaic of beauty. According to the United Nations, cultural diversity is as necessary for humankind as biodiversity is for nature, the common heritage of humanity. And sure, that all sounds wonderful. We all enjoy the benefits of cross-cultural exchange, the diverse food, music, literature of various different cultures, at least when we're not being accused of cultural appropriation for enjoying those things.
So I went to this obscure website called www.google.com and typed in cultural appropriation. This took me about 5 seconds and wow. Some people have a problem when someone is exploitative or disrespectful towards others, and not when they just enjoy other cultures. I am sure that he is not deliberately misrepresenting an argument, he just never heard of Google before.
But multiculturalism may very well be the downfall of Western civilization itself. There are three main problems with multiculturalism. First, some context. Since the 1960s, Western countries have moved beyond mere appreciation for cultural difference. Political multiculturalists have long suggested that all cultures are equally worthy of respect and inclusion, and the best society is the most diverse society.
The best way the world works is everybody in, nobody out.
This point of view is disastrous. It's disastrous because not all cultures are morally equivalent.
What do you think people mean when they say that all cultures must be respected equally? Do you think it means that you should not disrespect other people's food, music, clothing, or just culture in general, and that you should not harass them for being different? Or do they mean that hanging gay people or kidnapping women enrolled in Western education is perfectly okay as long as it's part of your culture? I mean, I don't know, but hey, pick a multicultural country, commit a crime, and when they try to arrest you for it, claim that it is part of your culture, and arresting you for it would be racism. Have fun with that and let me know how it goes.
Some cultures, for example, prize truth as a value above others. Other cultures value death over life. Multiculturalism as a philosophy requires a peculiar narcissism found in the West. We tend to think in the West that everyone thinks like us. But as Joseph Henrich, author of The Weirdest People in the World, writes, if you were, quote, raised in a society that is Western, educated, industrialized, rich, and democratic, you're likely rather psychologically peculiar. In other words, not everyone thinks like you. Pretending otherwise is dangerous. For example, if a young Western woman walks through the streets of Mogadishu dressed for a Taylor Swift concert, things are likely to go poorly.
Also, I love this frame. Rape is normal. It's almost like he picked it to illustrate that in Somalia, rape is socially accepted. Please don't read below the headline, because it will indicate that rape is not normal in a sense that it is socially accepted, but rather in a sense that it is common, and also that it is not socially accepted, and this is why people are trying to fight against it.
And if Britain imports tens of thousands of people from Mogadishu,
do you think Ben Shapiro is using the word importing instead of immigrating because he thinks that Somalians are not people, rather objects or cattle? Or do you think that he's referencing an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory that they are importing? Hey, I can actually do this. They are importing brown people into white countries to replace the population.
And that same young Western woman wanders through their neighborhood dressed for a Taylor Swift concert, things are no less likely to go poorly.
Yes, Britain is a failed state ruled over by several warlords who are actively fighting each other. There is no effective police force and there is general chaos, making it impossible to prevent rape. Also, if there are rapists in Mogadishu, that must mean that the imported people will also be rapists, because they are from Mogadishu. I am told this is what is called logic. There are absolutely no people in Somalia who are against rape. You know, that's why they are fighting against it.
And yet the peculiar narcissism of the West has led the West to champion multiculturalism for 3 generations. What's more, because the West has a tendency to believe that all cultures are equivalent, the West has opened its borders wide. After all, you've been told if everyone thinks like we do, the only possible reason to deny mass migration would be, wait for it, racism.
This is not me making an edit, this is in his original video. And nobody told me that, mainly because there are other arguments against mass immigration. Even if the would-be immigrants are from the same culture, ethnicity, religion, or political views. Or even if these immigrants are migrating within the same country.
So sure, let everyone in, and then demand little or no assimilation.
Why should they assimilate? Dutch and French people are doing pretty okay in Belgium without assimilating into each other's culture. Or the French and the British in Canada. Or the French, the Germans, the Italians, and some fourth group I always forget in Switzerland. Perfect examples of why multiculturalism is bad. Especially Switzerland. Things are pretty shitty there. Or so I heard. Also, should Ben Shapiro assimilate into the majority Christian population of the United States? Or is that only for brown people?
As Suella Braverman, Home Secretary in the UK, says, quote, there is an optimal level of immigration. It is not zero, but there has been more migration to the UK and Europe in the last 25 years than in all the time that went before. And in the United States, mass migration means that there are somewhere between 11 and 22 million illegal immigrants living in the country.
Why is he arguing against mass immigration? Aren't we talking about multiculturalism? Also, he's trying to conflate mass immigration with illegal immigrations. So, since he's talking about multiculturalism, can he explain why Belgium will sink into the sea because the French half is baking croissant instead of wearing wooden shoes?
This has resulted in three main problems. The first is breakdown of civic bonds. Every society has baseline propositions to which all members must pledge fealty. In the West, for example, most countries rely on social agreement to the rule of law and equal justice before the law, freedom of speech, freedom of religious practice, respect for private property, among other general principles.
So basically, liberalism.
Importing large numbers of people who disagree with these propositions results not in a richer and more wonderful life for Western countries, but in societal breakdown.
The implication being that everyone who immigrates to, who is imported is against liberalism. Does he support this claim with facts or data? No, the facts in the name of this video is like democratic in the name of Democratic People's Republic of Korea.
Take, for example, the agreement's rule of law, a belief that justice should be applied evenly, even to members of your own family. But a lot of cultures don't actually believe that. As Henrik writes, quote, we weird people show relatively less favoritism toward our friends, families, co-ethnics, and local communities than other populations do. So it should be no shock that importing people from cultures that act tribally with regards to the rule of law can lead to massive crime problems.
So people who do not respect the law will commit crimes. That's the first time I ever heard it. So he is heavily implying that all imports are against the rule of law or are criminals. Of course he can't say it, not just because there will be a backlash, but because it would be really easy to disprove this claim. Take me for example, I'm an immigrant and so far I haven't committed any crimes. Well, I have a speeding ticket. But take my neighbor for example, she is also an immigrant without any crimes. Of course it is irrelevant because I get a sunburn during a full moon and she is also an avid consumer of sun cream, so I guess we are expats and not immigrants.
As Ayaan Hirsi Ali has pointed out, from 2009 to 2021, some 3 million immigrants have come to Europe, mostly from the Middle East and Africa. 2/3 were male, 80% were under the age of 35. Unsurprisingly, during that same period, sexual coercion has become far more commonplace.
What do you mean unsurprising? Just say the line, bam.
In 2017 in Germany, for example, sexual coercion and rape jumped 41%. Between 1997 and 2013, some 1,400 children were sexually abused in Rotherham in England.
Okay, I will do it instead of him. He's trying to argue that since importation and the number of sexual violence cases correlate, there must be a causal link between them. I am told this is logic. But he could also bring up statistics about the breakdown of crimes committed by race to support this causal link. And if he found an overrepresentation of brown people, he could argue that if someone has the property of being brown and the property of being a rapist, then something association fallacy. So according to logic, brown people are rapists, therefore immigration bad.
The media refused to report the story because they believed that doing so would cause a spike in racism. According to Professor Alexis Jay's report on the story, quote, several counselors interviewed believed that by opening up these issues, they could be giving oxygen to racist perspectives that might in turn attract extremist political groups and threaten community cohesion. Just last month, when Israel was victimized by a massive Hamas terrorist assault, London saw a 1,353% increase in anti-Semitic offenses.
And do you, Ben, think that judging someone based on their religion, ethnicity, or culture is a bad thing? Do you think it is bad to hold someone responsible for the actions or perceived actions of someone else from the same ethnic, religious, or cultural group? Or should we rather live in a multicultural society where people are not harassed for their culture? If you say no and argue that multiculturalism is bad, as you are trying to do in this video without any success, can you also explain why you live in a majority Christian country and not in a majority Jewish country?
Overall in France, foreigners accounted for nearly half of those arrested in Paris and 19% in the entire country. We'll get to more on this in just a second. First,
Yeah, this video has a sponsor.
VPN.com/Ben Erikov. Advocates of multiculturalism seek to ignore the ugly side of mass migration.
Yes, and proponents of social welfare also tend to ignore the incapability of our current models of gravity to describe quantum gravity. What does this have to do with multiculturalism? Again, multiculturalism and mass immigration are two different things. You can have multiculturalism without mass immigration, the countries I just mentioned, and you can have mass immigration without multiculturalism, either by internal immigration within a monocultural country or immigration between two countries with the same or very similar cultures. So why are we still talking about mass immigration 6 minutes into an 8-minute video?
Hiding statistics or eliding them entirely. Many European countries refuse to break down criminality by ethnicity or religion.
Yeah, do you know why? A. Because there have been no sound arguments or scientific evidence in favor of a causal link between race and criminality. B. Because despite what Michael Jackson wants you to believe, you can't really change your race.
And this creates pushback from right-wing groups who seek immigration restrictions. The social compact begins to fray.
So, following his line of arguing, if we do not publish data detailing the blood groups of the offenders, this will result in a pushback against people with certain blood groups? Or do you think it is more likely that the cause is certain people using propaganda, logical fallacies, and misinformation to incite hatred against certain groups? Like they did in... I can't think of any examples right now, but I'm sure it has already happened in history.
The second problem with multiculturalism and its effects is taxation of public resources. In a non-welfare state, mass migration...
Someone should force feed him Adara. He would focus on multiculturalism for about 3 seconds before he began rambling about mass immigration. Again.
And multiculturalism might be possible, mainly because the institutions of the economy immediately assimilate people who come to a new country.
If we stop all welfare programs, then Harry Potter himself will wave his magic hand at immigrants upon arrival, resulting in them learning the local language, taking up local customs, including food, music, and clothing, and they will also change their skin tone into a lighter shade. This lesson is very important so they don't commit any crimes. Because brown people are criminals.
This assimilation can be bolstered by societal pressures or government assistance, as was the case in America in the early 20th century. But in a vast welfare state, immigration simply cannot be open. In 2014, the anti-illegal immigration group Federation for American Immigration Reform estimated social and government services to illegal aliens cost the state of California $25.3 billion per year.
This is really fucking tiresome. We are not even talking about mass immigration now, we are talking about illegal immigration. He even emphasized it. So since illegal immigration is bad, mass immigration is also bad, because they are the same thing. And since mass immigration is bad, multiculturalism is bad because facts.
According to the Center for Immigration Studies, nearly half of all households headed by legal immigrants used at least one welfare program in 2012, compared with 30% of native-headed households.
Okay, and? How much did the welfare actually cost? How much taxes did these immigrants pay in return? How about the other 50%? Does the combined tax contribution of all immigrants offset the total cost of welfare? Is this just a single case or an inherent part of immigration? I'm sorry, importation. Why are we talking about this in a video about multiculturalism? Also, do you think that he showed a statistic about the cost of illegal immigration in California then very quickly switched to a statistic showing legal immigrants receiving welfare, hoping that some people will misunderstand it as illegal immigrants receiving welfare. Also, he didn't say that half of the legal immigrants receive welfare, rather that half of the households headed by, whatever that means, legal immigrants receive it. So if you have 3 or 4 immigrants in a household but only one of them receives welfare, phrasing it like this makes it sound like all of them receive it. Even if the person receiving it may be the native spouse of an immigrant, or a child born in the United States and being an American citizen. So these cases would also go towards the statistics. Also by native, I mean someone who someone who was imported on the Mayflower, not natives. They are brown people, therefore immigrants, so they should go back where they came from.
That imbalance is particularly stark with regards to food programs, 36% to 22%, and Medicaid, 39% to 23%. The third problem with multiculturalism is the broadening of the so-called Overton window. Cultures bring their values with them, as we've talked about earlier. Those values may, and in many cases do in fact, run absolutely counter to the values of the host society.
Like supporting Palestine, for example, because the host nation is unilaterally supporting Israel. There are absolutely no natives who support Palestine.
It's not just that radical Muslim migration into Europe brings with it an attendant increase in terrorism, though it does. It's that large new constituencies hold radical views sometimes.
These radical views are always bad. And if you doubt that, just look at the Molotov cocktail depicted in the B-roll. We don't know who tried it, so just imagine it was thrown by an immigrant, who is also Muslim and also brown. Also, did you notice that whenever he talks about imports, there is a B-roll depicting them in a negative or violent way? Since Ben is a man of logic, I am sure he's not trying to appeal to your emotions. This is just a coincidence.
A poll in February 2015 found widespread sympathy for radical views among British Muslims. 27% said they had some sympathy for the motives behind the terrorist attack on French satire magazine Charlie Hebdo.
What is some sympathy? Does that mean that they don't want offensive cartoons to be drawn of their religious figure? Or do they full-on support the terrorist attack? Because some people can understand the statement the poll asked, I have some sympathy for the motives behind the Charlie Hebdo attacks in Paris, to mean an agreement that people should not draw satirical cartoons that some people may find offensive, but not necessarily an agreement that the attacks were justified, while others will understand it as an agreement with the attacks itself. But hey, let's assume that the 27% full-on agreed to the attack itself, and 62% disagreed, according to the Reuters summary. I could not find the original poll. So do these numbers mean that if we want to treat the British Muslims as a homogeneous entity, like Ben wants us to do, then their cultural value is not supporting terrorist attacks? Does that run contrary to the values of the native British people?
According to a 2023 poll from Signal, 58% of American Muslims said that Hamas was justified in attacking Israel after Hamas's genocidal attack on Israeli civilians on October 7, 2023.
Well, I can't really argue with 58%. I am convinced. We should establish a monocultural ethno-state, because that will prevent genocide like it prevented it in the past. Also, did they say that Hamas is justified attacking Israel in general, or did they specifically say that Hamas was justified in killing, raping, and kidnapping civilians in October 7?
Diversity can, in fact, be a strength, but only when that diversity serves a common purpose and a societal goal. Robert Putnam, author of the book Bowling Alone, is a leftist who once believed in the mantra diversity is our strength. Then he started doing experiments regarding communities. What he saw was that diversity in communities didn't lead to better, more cohesive, more tolerant communities.
Okay, so it had no positive effect. Did it have a negative effect, or did it not affect the communities at all? Also, he's a leftist who used to believe in diversity, like every member of this homogeneous group, but then he did a study. It is very important to set him up as an authority rather than just to go into the details of the study. The only thing in this entire video that is at least related to the topic of this video. We are almost at the end of this video, and talking about immigration and NordVPN or whatever is somehow more important than talking about the actual topic of this video.
Putnam concluded the only way to leave our doors unlocked at night and to trust each other to babysit our kids comes from shared values.
Like in Colima City, where almost 95% of the population is Christian. Would you leave your doors open at night there? I mean, I would, after getting the fuck out of there and moving to London, where all those scary brown people live. Because the homicide rate in London is only 1.4 and not 182 per 100,000 people. Of course, even that 1.4 could be improved if we change the current demographics of London back to what it was in 1991, because then it would only be... No, that can't be right. Please ignore the facts and just look at this brown man wobbling his hands at the camera. Are you scared yet? What was the title of this video, by the way?
The West must rediscover its shared values and stand in pursuit of them, or allow itself to be torn apart from the inside.
Do you mean the principles of liberalism? Why can't we do that in a multicultural setting? Why can't people from different cultural groups share the same moral principles? So, the claim of this video is that multiculturalism could be the downfall of Western civilization. He has 3 other claims related to the original one that are intended to support it. The first one is the breakdown of civic bonds. His supporting argument is that there are immigrants who disobey the law and oppose liberalism. What does this have to do with multiculturalism? But hey, he's right, we should close the border, because then the natives will stop committing crimes and would support liberalism, because facts. The second one was taxation of public resources, because some immigrants benefit from welfare programs. Again, what does this have to do with multiculturalism? Are immigrants as a group a net contributor or not? And not just taxes, but also the work they are doing. The third one was the broadening of the Overton window. Some immigrants may have values that run absolutely counter to the values of the host society. You guessed it, if we will have no immigration, especially from Muslim countries, then we will never have this problem. Also, we could just decide to only let people in with similar values to ours. Okay, so the real argument he is heavily implying in this video is that there are people who belong in the group of immigrants and also in the group of criminals. Therefore, if any other person belongs in the group of immigrants, then he will also belong in the group of criminals. Of course, this is a sound argument and absolutely not a logical fallacy. If you don't believe me, you can just look at this article on Wikipedia. He drives this point home by showing emotionally appealing pictures and videos whenever he talks about immigrants. Even on the thumbnail, there is a blood splatter under the word diversity. Because diversity will lead to violence because of brown people. He's also implying that every other culture is criminal, especially Muslims whom he references, or brown people shown in the videos and pictures. He treats these cultures as homogeneous entities and ignores the fact that there are different people within these groups. These are real countries and not some magical kingdom from a Disney movie. And with a population of tens of millions, you will find every kind of people in these countries. Like refugees or economic immigrants, whether they are immigrating legally or illegally, whether they are here to work or to leech off welfare. But you will also find criminals and terrorists. And these kind of people are present in every single country, even the country they are immigrating into. That's why we should judge a person based on the person, and not the group they are belonging to. Also, he acts like ethnically and culturally homogeneous societies have a homogeneous set of values. I am sure that I will be able to find someone from the same ethnicity and culture who has a vastly different set of values than him. I will also be able to find another person who is native to the United States like him, so no importation is needed. And this person from the same ethnicity and culture may have a certain level of dislike toward certain items of Ben's clothing. Should multiculturalism, advocating for the coexistence of people from different cultures, ethnicities or religions, be implemented in that case? Or should Ben assimilate into the most common religion? Or do we let this hypothetical person find another solution to this problem? So, what is his argument supporting the claim that multiculturalism will end Western civilization? I don't know. Maybe I missed it, maybe there isn't one. Also, he's probably financed by big sunscreen in order to preserve the pigmentation levels of the customer base. More propaganda in my last video, and thank you for watching. A special thanks to my Patreons, J. Brandon and Ardabon, for supporting my channel.